All right, so whenever we talk about any belief system, right, our first instinct is to ask why believe that. But hold on, before we can even get to the why, we've got to understand the what. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're going to break down the basic worldview of Islam, not as just some list of do's and don'ts, but as a whole framework for how it sees the world.
Okay, so to set the stage here, the world is absolutely packed with different beliefs. I mean, depending on how you count, we're talking about over 4,000 different religions and spiritual traditions out there. That's just mind-boggling, right? Each one with its own unique story, its own culture, and its own take on life's big questions.
But here's the thing. For all that variety, it really boils down to just a few major players that make up most of the world's believers. You've got Christianity at number one, for now, but right behind it is Islam with almost 2 billion followers. And what's really interesting is that it's also the fastest-growing faith on the planet.
So naturally, that makes a lot of people ask, okay, so why Islam? Out of all those thousands of options, why this one? But jumping to that question is kind of like trying to solve a math problem without even knowing what X or Y stands for. It just doesn't work. To really get it, we've got to pump the brakes and take a step back.
And that brings us to the real starting point, a much more basic question. What is Islam? And I don't just mean, what are the rules? I mean, what's its core explanation for everything, for existence itself? See, once we shift our focus from trying to be persuaded to just trying to understand, everything gets a whole lot clearer.
Okay, so to do that, we need a good framework. And it turns out pretty much any belief system that makes sense, and I mean any, whether it's religious or not, it has to answer 3 huge universal questions. These are the questions that people have been asking since, well, forever. And here they are. Number 1, origin. How do we get here? Number 2, destiny. Where are we all going? And number 3, the big one, purpose. Why are we even here in the first place? What's the point of all this? Origin, destiny, and purpose. That's the lens we're going to use today. Now, for a long, long time, our ancestors tackled these questions with myths. They came up with these incredible, often really dramatic stories to try and make sense of a world that, let's be honest, could be pretty chaotic and scary. Let's check out a couple of them.
When you look at these old stories, man, the variety is just wild. The ancient Egyptians, they pictured a god basically creating himself out of this cosmic ocean. The Greeks, for them, the whole universe was born from let's call it a complicated relationship between the earth and the sky. And in some Hindu beliefs, it all started with this cosmic golden egg. I mean, these are seriously powerful, super imaginative tales.
Islam, though, takes a really different path. It doesn't give you this big, complicated family drama of gods and goddesses stretching over generations. Instead, what it offers is more like a direct interpretive model, a straightforward, clean framework to just understand the world.
And the contrast is pretty stark. You ask about origin, the answer is one, all-powerful creator. You ask about destiny, the answer is resurrection, followed by a final judgment. And purpose? Well, the purpose is to live a life of what it calls good deeds. See? It's simple, it's direct, it's very structured.
Okay, but this brings up a huge question right away, doesn't it? How can you call a model logical when it's built on things you can't see, like an unseen creator, an unseen afterlife? Yeah, how does that work? Well, this is where a really key idea comes in: belief in the unseen.
From the Islamic point of view, belief in the Ghayb, that's the Arabic word for the unseen, it isn't just a blind leap of faith. It's not about just closing your eyes and hoping for the best. It's actually presented as a logical conclusion, a deduction that you make based on the evidence you can see. Let me give you a simple analogy to show you what I mean.
Okay, picture this. You walk into a room, there's no fire, but the walls are black with soot, and what used to be a chair is now just a pile of ash, right? You didn't see the fire, but your brain immediately puts 2 and 2 together and concludes, yep, there was a fire in here. It's a logical deduction. The argument, then, is that you apply that exact same logic to the universe itself. You look around, you see the incredible order of it all, the laws of physics, the insane complexity of life. That's the ash and soot, and from that evidence, you deduce that there must have been an unseen cause, a creator. So it's framed as a totally rational conclusion, not just a blind guess.
All right, so we've got our answers for origin and destiny, and they're based on this idea of logical deduction. So let's get back to that third big question, purpose. The model says our purpose is to live a life of good deeds. But that phrase, it means a whole lot more than just, going through the motions of religious rituals.
And this is where we hit a really central concept called taqwa, At its heart, taqwa is all about ethical self-restraint. It's about being deeply aware that you're accountable to something higher than just yourself. And here's the kicker. It's not really about how you act when you're in a place of worship. It's about how you act out in the real world, in your job, in your business dealings, and how you compete, especially when the pressure is on.
This idea completely reframes the whole point of religious rituals that we're all familiar with. Things like prayer, fasting, giving to charity, they aren't the end goal, not at all. In this model, they're the tools, they're the training, they're like a workout for your soul designed to build up the inner strength you need for the real test, which is taqwa, or ethical living.
Let's break that down a bit. The 5 daily prayers? They're like these little check-ins throughout the day to remind you there's a higher accountability. Fasting? That's direct, hands-on training for controlling your physical desires and impulses. And charity? That trains you to be the master of your money, instead of letting your money be the master of you. See? Each one is like a specific exercise, strengthening a different muscle you need to live an ethical life.
And it all leads to this. There's a really famous line from the Prophet Muhammad's final sermon that kind of sums up the end result of all this taqwa. It's the practical, real-world application. All that training, all that self-discipline, it all boils down to having this sacred respect for other people's lives, their property, and their honor. This is the point where faith walks out of the prayer hall and right into the office, the community, the family.
So let's just wrap our heads around this for a second. If the individual rituals are the training, and the real goal, the ultimate test, is how you actually treat other people day to day, well then how does that change our whole idea of what it even means to be a religious person? What this model is really saying is that the final exam of your faith isn't taken in private, it's taken out in public, in society. It suggests that real faith is measured less by how well you perform your rituals and more by how much integrity, fairness, and compassion you show to everyone around you. Now that's a thought to chew on.